You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We're headed to the Dominican Republic today.
Yes.
Well, at least one of our guests is in the Dominican Republic. We'll have that conversation in just a moment. Thanks to Concordia University Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today from the Dominican Republic, we have Deaconess Danelle Putnam, serving the Lord in the Dominican Republic. Thanks so much for joining us today, Deaconess Putnam.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
We are excited to talk about some friends that you recently had visit in the past year, some fellow deaconesses and deaconess students. Joining us from Concordia University Chicago, Deaconess Kristin Wassilak, Interim Dean of the College of Theology, Arts and Humanities, and Deaconess Program Leader for Concordia University Chicago. Deaconess Kristin, welcome.
Great to be with you.
And Katie Kaufmann, Deaconess graduate from Concordia University Chicago, who made the visit to the Dominican Republic as a deaconess student. Katie, welcome to the Coffee Hour.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about your experience as a student, Katie. Why were you interested in visiting our brothers and sisters in the Dominican Republic as a deaconess student?
The main reason was to see mission work in action. I've heard from other missionaries in the past, and you always hear that there's never an average day of missionary work. And so getting to go and to see, even to participate in some of the mission work was a great opportunity.
So what did you know about the Dominican Republic? Did you know anything about the DR before you thought about going down there?
Really not much at all. I just knew it shared an island with Haiti and it was going to be hot. So it was great to have Ann Gonzalez and Aaron McKenzie was our volunteer coordinator that sent us information beforehand and encouraged us to do some research on the culture. And that was very helpful to prepare beforehand and know what we were getting into.
So what did that research and preparation look like for you? What kinds of things did you look at? What kinds of cultural stuff did you do? Did you do any language training as well? What did all of that look like for you?
I did not do much language training. I took Spanish in high school for a few years, which was helpful. It would have been nice maybe to be more fluent, but Aaron was there to help translate the whole time as well. And we watched a video that they had prepared from other volunteers telling us what to expect, as well as read a book on the Dominican Republic that went over many cultural differences and things to expect.
All right. What was your biggest hope for this trip, and what was your biggest fear about making this trip?
Biggest hope, really, I just wanted to meet the local people, meet the missionaries, and learn more about what they were doing, learn more about the work our Synod is doing in other countries. And the biggest fear, just always there's a fear going to a new country. I've never been out of the country before, so in that sense, not knowing what it would be like, the unknown is always a little bit of a fear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Deaconess Kristin, what did you want your students to experience on their visit to the Dominican Republic?
Well, in short, I guess I wanted them to be stretched, if you can put it that way, like the stretch spiritually, emotionally, physically, cognitively, stretch their ideas of how the world works, how the church works, how the Lord works. You discover things about students when they're under stress. They discovered things about me under stress too. You know, just how you travel together and unexpected things that happen, but also just watching them interact in a completely new way. New sights, new smells, new sounds, everything's new. And you start hearing how they process that and how they go from everything being surprising and weird to, even by the end of just 1 week, feeling very comfortable with things that at first they were very like, whoa, what's that? And as the week goes on, they start focusing more and more on people's spiritual welfare and their personalities and who they are underneath the Spanish language and the newness, and them relax and just see how amazing God's work is in this very concentrated way. So much was packed into 8 days. I could never replicate that kind of experience here in the United States. And so we were very blessed by our deaconess sisters who serve in the Dominican Republic, as well as the Dominican students and deaconesses who are from there who taught our students as well.
Deaconess Putnam, what kind of preparations did you make on your end for these students to come and visit you?
We always enjoy receiving guests, and especially as a deaconess, we enjoy receiving sisters on the field to share with them. One of the things that we do with these learning trips, which the students from Concordia Chicago did, was a learning trip, was we plug them into our regular activities. So there wasn't a whole lot of preparation that we actually had to do for them. Rather, it was just having them shadow us, look at what we do, maybe change a few activities to include them or to have them lead something. But we didn't create any extra activity out of the norm for them to participate. Rather, we included them in our life and work, not only of the missionaries, but of the other church workers here in the Dominican and the mission. My husband and I did host them at our homes, so we did prepare, and my husband prepared better said, a nice meal for them. But other than that, we just really like people to be able to come down and see what real life mission work is like. And so we don't do really any extra preparations. Rather, we fit them into what we're already doing. And so that could be in the area of administration. It could be in the area of church planning, in the area of theological education, in the area of mercy work and mercy projects we have. So there's a whole gamut of different things for the ladies to see.
So tell me a little bit more about some of the work that you get to do day to day. You mentioned mercy work and all the other things that team there in the Dominican Republic gets to do. What are some of the things that you get to do as a deaconess in the Dominican Republic that you got to share with these students?
Well, here in the Dominican, our field is also the regional hub for Latin America and the Caribbean. So the students were able to meet missionaries that not only serve the Dominican Republic, maybe as church planners or theological educators, but they also serve the greater region. And that could be caring for their missionaries, or specifically, we also have a seminary in the Dominican Republic, and our seminary serves the region. One of the areas that I'm involved in, which it directly correlates with the students that came from CUC, so I'm involved in deaconess formation in Latin America and the Caribbean. So we're forming women in our sister missions of the LCMS and our sister churches. So this year we're in 9 different countries serving them. So we talked about that and what that looks like. What does not only formation look like, but how are these other women in our sisters in Christ serving in their countries and their churches? They're serving in the areas of Christian education and Sunday school and youth group, reaching out to their neighborhoods, reaching out to kids and youth who don't know Christ, bringing them into the church to share God's word with them. They're involved in spiritual care of people. They go and do visits to people in their congregation, to family members and members, to people they know who need help, to pray for them, to do devotions for them. And they're also involved in different mercy work projects. For example, in the Dominican, one of our mercy work projects is we have a group home for people with developmental disabilities and several ministries for people with developmental disabilities. That's one of the things that that the ladies were involved in and saw and did activities with our kids. But also in our region, now we have ladies who are also reaching out to the lost, to the community, to people who have spiritual and physical needs who need God's mercy. And they do that through many, many ways. There's feeding programs and getting people medical care. So these are all types of things that the ladies were able to see not only going on in our field, but then extending out into other parts of our region, Latin America and the Caribbean.
Sounds like a great opportunity for Deaconess students to be able to see all of that happening in another cultural context, another country, with another language, all of these things that sound like it's a great opportunity to have that experience before being placed somewhere, and maybe an inspiration for Deaconess students to serve internationally as well. Katie, what was that like for you getting to the Dominican Republic at the beginning of this trip? What was that experience like for you embarking on this journey?
It was very different. Like I said, never been out of the country before, so meeting all types of different people. Of course, the language was a little bit of a barrier, but seeing how things are structured differently there, seeing the different work and ministry that they're doing was all new. There are a lot of similarities, of course, between what they're doing there and what we do here in the States, but that was also a lot of differences that we talked about, how the culture really defines how that ministry plays out in action, and identifying those was really neat and a great way to learn from them and see not just that what we can offer them, but what they can offer us.
We have more to learn about the Deaconess student visit to the Dominican Republic in just a moment. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
At Concordia University, Wisconsin, we believe you were created for a reason: to use your God-given gifts to help others, to live a life of self-sacrifice in a me-first world, to live a life that's uncommon. Whether you're taking one of 50-plus online programs or learning with us in person on the shores of Lake Michigan, you'll be equipped to make an uncommon impact. Learn more at cuchicago.edu. Concordia University, Wisconsin. Live uncommon.
Welcome back to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We are talking with Deaconess students and deaconesses serving in the Dominican Republic, and students from Concordia University Chicago who recently made a visit to the Dominican Republic. Our guest today, Deaconess Kristin Wassilak, Interim Dean of the College of Theology and Arts and Humanities at Concordia University Chicago. She's also the Deaconess Program Leader there at CUC. Katie Kaufmann, recent Deaconess graduate from Concordia University Chicago, and Deaconess Danelle Putnam, who serves the Lord in the Dominican Republic. Now, Katie, we were talking a little bit about your experience as a student visiting there, all the things you got to learn, got to see while visiting the Dominican Republic, especially visiting with sister deaconesses and sister deaconess students in the Dominican Republic. All this learning happening while you were there. Did you also have the opportunity to serve in any way while you were there?
We did. We were able to go to the group home that's right next to the seminary and visit with the people with developmental disabilities that live there. And that was a very joyful experience. I'm just playing games with them and eating a meal with them, getting to know them a little bit. There was one woman there who was showing us pictures of her family, and that was really sweet. She wanted to include us and show us about her life. And then we were also able to go to the state-run mental hospital in the Dominican Republic, and a kind of similar situation. We played games with them. They really loved to play bingo and did manicures and colored with them, and just showing Christ's love to those people, as well as doing a little bit of work around the seminary, some landscaping and weeding, planting flowers.
What were some of the highlights of your time there? It sounds like you were able to meet a lot of people and do a lot of things, see a lot of different types of work being done. What were some of the highlights of that time for you over those 8 days?
Going to the group home was definitely one of the highlights. Meeting the people there, as well as going to the class for deaconess students, was a lot of fun. Even though it was completely in Spanish, it was pretty easy to follow along with, just because it's exactly the kind of things that we learned here at Concordia Chicago. And then afterwards, we got to meet with the deaconess students, hear their stories. And that was also really neat, just to, again, seeing differences and similarities between us. So they were older women, so different stages of their life. They're going back to serve in their home congregations, unlike us, that we can be called to serve anywhere in the country or world even. But then, of course, still the similarities that we have the same faith, the same Lord, same training. So I really enjoyed getting to speak with them.
Deaconess Kristin, what are some of the things that you learned as a lifelong student? What are some of the things that you learned on this trip visiting with deaconesses and others in the Dominican Republic?
One thing I had intended to do was something somebody asked me. One of the deaconesses asked, we're weary. And can you, when you're here, just concentrate also on helping to uphold us and encourage us and listen to us. And, it reminded me of just how important the deaconess community is, that we all get weary in our service. And sometimes due to certain circumstances and certainly all coming out of COVID, everything's just been a lot. And so one thing was really helpful for me to keep in mind was that my sisters needed encouragement, and our students were also mindful of that, of praying for our deaconesses there. And we continue to do that, both the deaconesses from the States and those that are from Latin America. We also just taking time to listen to them and carry one another's burdens and laugh and share God's word with each other. That was a very meaningful part for me. I think if there's one sort of unexpected thing that happened is on one of our home visits, we were with a Dominican deaconess who was interacting with a woman and the woman's disabled child who is in a wheelchair. And we're just sitting on their porch in a regular place and, just listening to this deaconess, watching how she interacted with this mother and son. And during the whole time we're there, about half hour, 40 minutes, the deaconess was just standing next to this boy, just stroking his hair, just gently caring for him as she's talking to him and his mother and praying and sharing God's encouragement to come to worship, just in this really gentle, loving combination of mercy, spiritual care, and teaching them of Christ's love. That moment really stands out for me. The culture is so welcoming and beautifully open arms to us. We felt so welcome. It was not tourism. This was a different kind of experience. We were in people's homes. Even when we went to the beach on the last day we were there in the afternoon, we went to a Dominican family beach. There were no other tourists there. We were the only North American looking people on the beach. And so we were kind of like celebrity status. The girls got a lot of attention. But it was so friendly and open, and people asked us questions, and we got to know people even just on the beach. I would not let my students interact in that kind of way here in the United States. I wouldn't feel like it was safe or welcome to do so. It was just a real eye-opening experience, even though it's the third time I've been there.
Katie, how has this experience shaped how you view your future vocation as a deaconess?
Great question. I mentioned a little bit how we were comparing our deaconess ministry here in the States and there in the Dominican Republic, and how there really are so many similarities between the two, even though also many differences. And it was great to be in that ministry too, to see deaconesses at those home visits, spiritually caring for people, doing mercy work with the people with disabilities, those who are marginalized in the community, teaching the faith in Sunday school, Bible studies, and all of that really did enrich my understanding of how God works in the church and in the world. And it was also cool seeing that there is a little bit of a special bond between us deaconess sisters that are doing this work, continuing this tradition of women serving the church. And there's one deaconess in particular who is Dominican and works in Santo Domingo that we were able to Zoom with, and how she was spiritually caring for us over that Zoom call, and just always encouraging us and telling us to trust God, to lean on the Lord, that He will see us through whatever we go through in life. And I think that really sums it up pretty well.
Deaconess Putnam, what does a visit like this mean for your students to interact with other deaconess students from the States?
I think not only for our students, but for the Dominican Church. We're on an island, and so there's always a curiosity of what's outside the island. And we're a new little mission, a small church, and so meeting brothers and sisters in Christ has always been helpful to get them a larger picture of the church and the Lutheran Church, especially since they're so tiny here. Then with respect to the deaconess students, they're very encouraged. They see other women who are also studying and wanting to dedicate their lives to the service of the Lord and His church and to reaching the lost. And that helps motivate them. They understand that they're in this together. They're excited to see other ladies who are interested in serving in God's kingdom just as they are. So it becomes something that is larger, for them. And I think it helps kind of bring importance to what they're doing also, or helps them understand the importance of what they're doing and their service. And then, of course, just the fellowship is always just a real blessing to have the fellowship with brothers and sisters of Christ, in this case, especially the sisters. Mm-hmm.
Katie, what would you say to future students who might have the opportunity to visit the Dominican Republic or another international missionary site as well as a student, as a deaconess student?
I would say go for it. You're going to learn a lot about the world, about our mission to other countries, and you can also use the lessons to apply to your life and wherever you end up. Even if you don't want to be a missionary, it is a really enriching and helpful experience, and you might not get the opportunity again, so just do it.
Deaconess Kristin, how is this integral part, and experiences like this, an integral part of deaconess formation at Concordia Chicago?
The students all participate in at least 2 years of field work and a year of full-time paid internship as their 5th year. So they have a lot of practical experiences that are required of them, and a lot that happens volunteer basis in spiritual life opportunities here on campus and with our Northern Illinois district. But an experience like this cannot really be matched in the States, to be completely out of your comfort zone, to explore the idea, am I interested in missions? One of the students on the trip was like, yeah, and then just all the way along through the trip, her smile just kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because the Lord was really working on her heart and tearing down some barriers of her thinking and her resistance to the idea of being a missionary. So yeah, I can't do that. The Lord works through all these deaconesses and experiences, the pastors that we met, being in worship together in a foreign language that is the same language of the church together, and liturgy. It's just, it rocks.
Our guest today, Deaconess Danelle Putnam, serving the Lord in the Dominican Republic. Thanks so much for being our guest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deaconess Deaconess Kristin Wassilak, Interim Dean of the College of Theology, Arts and Humanities, as well as Deaconess Program Leader at Concordia University Chicago. Deaconess Kristin, thanks for being our guest.
Much appreciated. Thanks so much.
And Katie Kaufmann, a recent Deaconess student graduate from Concordia University Chicago. Katie, thanks so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
You've been listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.